Okay, so welcome back, and in this last part of this section we're gonna go ahead and finish off the back of the case by adding in these screws, and also there are a couple of other smaller screws around here that we'll go ahead and create and add in. And also I'll quickly walk you guys through how to create this mesh for the back. So we already learned how to go ahead and create a mesh like this one when we went ahead and created a mesh at the front, and this mesh on the back is pretty much the exact same thing apart from this cover. So I'll just quickly show you guys how this is constructed, and then you can go ahead and make it in your own time because I don't want to bore you guys creating a mesh again. So basically the first thing that you need to go ahead and do is create a mesh like this. So the first thing is basically it's the exact same sort of, you make one chunk, okay, and then you'll go ahead and duplicate it across this time and not down. So you duplicate it across, and then once you have your first row you duplicate it down, and as you can see this is smaller than that one, and you keep going down. So if you look at your reference image, and I just hide this one, you see there's the sort of pattern that you need to go ahead and make. So we'll just go ahead and follow this reference image, make your rows, merge it all together, and then once it's all merged together, merge the vertices together, and you basically have your mesh. And once you have your mesh, you'll end up with something that looks like, let me get rid of this, if I can hide this, we'll just add it to a new layer. There we go. So once you have your mesh, it will look like this, and obviously you need to go ahead and fill up this hole. Now if you notice on this mesh, this is two-sided as well, so you'll make this cover that you can see here. So we'll then go ahead and create a plane, like as you remember we created one on the bottom here. So you'll go ahead and create a plane across, and then you'll basically just go ahead and extrude these bits that will cover up the holes that you need. So you'll end up with a cover like this, and then once you have that, you'll go ahead and duplicate that so it covers up the back side as well, and you leave these two as two separate meshes. There's no need to combine these. Okay, you could go ahead and combine these, but it will go ahead and give you loads of trouble, so I would just leave them as two separate meshes, and as you can see it looks perfectly fine, as long as you make sure that this plane, you'll go ahead and move the pivot to one of these vertices and then snap it so it's the same length as this one, so it's on the same position, and you'll get a really nice mesh like this one. So anyway, once you created your mesh, you can go ahead and move on to these screws that we're going to go ahead and create next. So if I just go ahead and isolate one of them and show you how it looks. Okay, so we're going to create one of these fairly simple screws, and we'll also go ahead and create a different type of screw that's sort of scattered around the mesh. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these ones, and let's go ahead and crack on with creating these screws. So the first thing that we're going to go ahead and do is create a sphere, standard sphere, okay, and then we're going to go into our side view and delete all these faces on the bottom because we don't need them, and then we're going to go ahead and scale this down flat or fairly flat. Okay, so depending on how flat you want your screw to be, that's how much you're going to go ahead and flatten it down. And I'm going to go ahead and flatten it down probably around this much. This seems fairly standard for a screw. Okay, and then now we're going to go ahead and cut the bit in where the screwdriver goes in. So let's go ahead and go into our top view, and then we're basically just going to go ahead and select the faces that we need. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is select all these inner ones, and then we're going to go ahead and select these faces. Now you could go ahead and make it a little bit longer or even longer, depending on what your screw you want your screw to look like. We're going to go ahead and sort of roughly select these faces, and let's go ahead and do the same thing on this side. Okay, and I think we're going to go ahead and only select 3, I think. So let's go ahead select 3 here and select 3 on the other side as well. Okay, so once we have that, it's very straightforward, just extruding things in. So let's go ahead and extrude this, then go to offset and give it a tiny offset. Normally like a 0.01 should do the trick. Once we have that, we're going to go ahead and extrude it again, give it a thickness, and again a minus 0.01 should do the trick to give us that supporting edge. And then extrude it one more time and move it down. And while it's moved down, make sure that this face is straight by scaling it. Okay, so we don't want no bend in this bottom half, so we're just going to go ahead and scale it. And then go ahead and move it down roughly the depth that you think it would be suitable. So I think this will be fine. I think maybe a bit more. And extrude again, move down again a little bit just to give us that supporting edge there as well. Then extrude one more time, go to our offset and give it a 0.01 or 0.001, 0.005 offset. Okay, and this should smooth perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and see how this is looking. Smooth it. Okay, and we got our screw finished. Okay, so once we have this screw created, we're going to go ahead and create the other one as well. So let's go ahead and drag out a sphere again. And then again, go into a side view and delete all these bottom faces. And now let's go ahead and scale it down so it's roughly the same height as the other one. And then before we go ahead and start doing anything, we're going to go ahead and actually use Boolean for this. We're going to go ahead and create one more sphere the same size. Go into our top view and make sure that these line up perfectly. So I'm just going to go ahead and snap it to the pivot of the other one. Scale this one down. And now basically what we need to go ahead and do is scale this one the same way that we did the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and scale it down this way. Okay, and scale it up maybe. And probably scale it down more. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to make this the same size that you want your Boolean to go ahead and push this in. So we're actually going to go ahead and use a Boolean for this. I'm going to go ahead and turn on wireframe and shaders just so I see what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and scale this up a bit more. So basically I'm trying to go ahead and make sure that where this Boolean intersects with this second object, obviously it's going to go ahead and make a edge across here. So I'm going to go ahead and try to position this roughly at the right place. Okay, and I think this will do quite well. I'm going to select both of them and then go to Mesh, Booleans, Difference. Okay, and as you can see, I will go ahead and quite nicely cut that in for us. And because the division of these two objects were exactly the same, this should create a quite nice result. So as you can see, we can go ahead and get away with Booleans occasionally, but you need to go ahead and use them correctly. So they are dangerous to use, but they can work very well in some situations like this one. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and select this edge loop. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this up. Okay, and I think just to make sure I'm going to, okay, this is straight. So I'm going to go ahead and select that axis and then snap it up. So we get sort of a straight edge here. And hopefully it is. And then we're going to go ahead and add in the supporting edges here. So when we go ahead and smooth this, we're going to get a nice highlight hitting here. So I'm going to add these supporting edges here, there, and also on the inside, like so. And when we go ahead and smooth this, we should get a nice sort of highlight hitting on the edge there, okay. So we got this screw created as well, and now let's go ahead and put them to use. Let's go ahead and start with this one. I'm going to go ahead and modify center pivot on this and also delete the history. So I did delete all by type history. Let's go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees. Then go into our front view. Turn back on our references. Turn on X-ray as well. Scale this guy down. And let's go ahead and see where these needs to go. So there's one right there. I'm just going to go ahead and scale it down so it's the right size. Pop it to the right place and just make sure that it's at the right depth as well. Turn off X-ray. And I think we're nearly there. Okay, so we might get into an issue here, as you can see, because that is a bit too deep. So what we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to go ahead and push it in as far as we need to, roughly there. And then we're going to go ahead and select this edge loop, unsmooth, and extrude. Okay, so it's on a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and extrude it one time, scale it out a little bit, and then do it again. So now that's going to be inside our mesh, and that's what we need. And scale it out a little bit again, just so when we smooth it, we'll go ahead and keep that nice shape. Okay, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and duplicate this guy around. So we're going to need a couple there as well. Okay, so again, I'm just moving it to the right place, duplicate it again, move it across there. Let's go ahead and duplicate again. Okay, and let's see, there's one more up there, so we're just going to move this one up. And I think that is it. Okay, that's great. Let's go ahead and turn off X-ray. And there's our little screws. Cool. So let's go ahead and add in this guy next. So rotate 90 degrees. Go ahead and move it to the right place. And also just make sure that it's at the right place here as well. Scale this guy down, go back into a front view. Okay, so I'm going to turn on X-ray now, just to see how big the screw needs to be, and it's roughly this big, and as you can see there's a rubber grommet around it that we'll go ahead and add in just a second. So turn off X-ray and move it in the right place, and then we're actually going to go ahead and steal one of these rubber grommets. And actually I just noticed that I'm still getting this artifact here, so I'm going to go ahead and fix this later on. So I'm just going to duplicate this rubber grommet and move it to the right place, go into my front view. I'm going to go ahead and snap it to the center of that, scale it down like so. And now I'm going to go ahead and push this inside a hole. And probably scale this down, push it in a bit, and then scale it up, so we get those nice sort of highlights there. Okay, so let's go ahead and group these two together now. Modify center pivot, and now let's go ahead and duplicate it to the other holes as well. Okay. Duplicate it up, move it a bit, and then let's go ahead and create the last one as well by duplicating that one. Okay, so that looks great. We basically have our back panel finished. I think we're still missing this sort of panel here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just make it plain and extrude it, drag it down here. So it's very simple plane. I'm just going to go ahead and drag it down here. Select the vertices and just drag it down here. So it's intersecting with that panel. Select that axis, the Z. Turn off X-ray, hold down V and snap it there. Okay. And I think we're pretty much finished. Let's just go ahead and see how far this panel goes. Does it go all the way up to the top? Yeah, it goes all the way up there. So So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this here. And I think we're finished. Let's have a look. We got all our screws, we got our mesh. Well, you will have your mesh if you created it. And also up here, as you see, there are 2 holes. We could go ahead and cut them in, and we'll probably go ahead and do that in the next part of the tutorial. But apart from that, I think we're pretty much finished, and we'll probably actually go ahead and ignore that detail as well. So let's go ahead and group everything together and then move it to the place where it actually needs to be. So I'm going to select everything here and then group it together. Okay, and then just turn back my mesh that we had before, or just simply go to scale, and this is going to be our Z-1. So you flip it back to its original position where it was, and we can also change our reference image if we need to, but I think we finished everything on the front, so I'll probably just ignore that. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next parts.